networker is like a great interviewer.
I'm huge on authenticity, guys. It's a big part of my message.
Claim your local listings and don't get caught paying someone for your local listing.
If you want to be successful, you got to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times.
And when in doubt, give to other people and don't expect anything in return. But in giving to other people and helping them, it almost always comes back.
It's using the power of partnership, creating trusted partner networks to work with you to make your company be an offer more than just you.
They've done 90% of the work. It's your job to do the last 10% to meet them in the middle.
Don't let the fear of losing be greater than the excitement of winning. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by Advanced Septic Services and Fuse Networks. My name's Galen.
Good morning, I'm Joe.
And coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. So before we introduce our guests and get started with the podcast, Joe, how did our podcast come to be?
Sure. So it first started out as a Facebook group page, and the purpose was to bring people together, business owners specifically, to kind of talk to one another, share tips, ask questions, kind of create that trusted environment. And because we get a lot of questions as a marketing company outside of that, we wanted to bring on different guest speakers to talk about all kinds of topics as it relates to being in business or being a business owner.
Awesome. Our previous guest, Mr. Guy Powell, what was one of your takeaways when we had him on our last episode?
Sure. And I actually love this one, but it's data. So it was about marketing post-COVID. So it was about data, understanding marketing data to help you make better decisions with your marketing dollars.
Right. No matter if you're a big company or even the smallest company, right?
Correct.
Awesome. We want to welcome Jessica Harrington to our podcast. So Joe, can you read a formal introduction, please?
Sure. Jessica Harrington received her Master in Public Health at Westchester University. She is the owner of Journey to Yourself, is a speaker and stress management health educator. Through her career in education, she realized that we all have a common issue. Everyone, at some point or another, struggles with handling stress. Through her own life journey, Jessica created Journey to Yourself. Please, everyone, welcome Jessica.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Of course. So during each podcast, we ask our guests the same 3 questions. So just to get to know you, Jessica, the individual more. First question is, what are some early lessons learned as an entrepreneur?
Oh, Lord. So I think the first one is consistency, right? I think that's one thing we struggle with, especially in the beginning, because we think we're failing. We think we're failing because we're not seeing the actual initial outcome right away. And so we're just like, okay, well, this isn't working. Let me pivot. Let me do something different. But if we stick with consistency, I think that usually works out for us.
Awesome.
So being in business, I'm sure you get lots of advice. So what has been the best piece of advice you've been given?
Definitely consistency. And I would say doing what you love in the sense of if it makes you happy, right? Because you're going to get a lot of advice. Like you just said, Joe, right? Everyone's always going to be giving you advice, especially with networking, going on a podcast. I'm like, oh, did you try this new trend? Did you try this? And if it doesn't align with you, that's okay. If you're not a TikTok dancer, that's okay. So doing what makes the most sense for you, but still working on that process for yourself.
All right, I'm not a TikTok dancer.
Me neither.
Okay,
No,
just checking. I could start today and be one. Last question, since this is technically a marketing podcast, why is marketing important?
Marketing is really important, and I don't come from a marketing background. Like you said, Joe, my degree is public health. So it's not a marketing background in any means, but in the sense of what I've learned through my business, there's a couple of things. One, it's teaching. So a lot of what I do is through education, through my marketing, but also it's keeping your name out there, right? There's so many new businesses, especially in the past couple of years, everyone's starting their side hustle that's growing into something else. So how are you staying in the forefront, right? So how are you still showing that you're working? I think mostly when I think about marketing, we get cringy over social media, but in the sense, when you first go look at when we Google each other, we go website for sure, right? But we always stalk their social media going, are you legit? Are you a real person? Like, what's that look like? And to me, my understanding of marketing, that's marketing.
Awesome.
I will say on a side note, YouTube, if you're going to start a channel, since you educate people, if you have the title "How to" on your video, you'll instantly get more views. Just a side tip that I learned.
There's
from
that
Joe.
advice going. No, I was kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that with our podcast. I was like, why are we not getting views on YouTube? And then someone pointed out to me, and it's like,
Category,
oh,
yeah.
category,
Awesome.
simple fix.
Our hashtag Valor Cares initiative, something we're very proud of. Joe, shed some light to
Yeah.
our audience about it, please.
So it started a couple years ago during COVID. We wanted to give back to businesses who needed help. The foundation for every single business out there for their online presence is a website.
Mhm.
So it's just our opportunity just to give back to businesses first on a local level and now on a nationwide level. So they can go to our Ask Valor Masterminds website, click on Valor Cares and submit their information. And we build websites for free every month for selected winners.
Awesome.
Wow.
Now we come to the part of our podcast, our Advanced Septic Pump You Up Quote of the Day. So this is one we've read before, but it always makes us feel good, from the great Maya Angelou. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. So Jessica, why does this resonate with you so much?
I like this one the most because my mind says that we all give something different, right? Like you guys said, you guys are marketing people. You guys know what you're doing in that field. I know what I'm doing in the stress management field. So we're all doing what we're doing, what we knew best. So education's huge. But for me to go, oh my God, this was so much fun. I had such a great time. I'm going to remember that. I'm not going to remember, everything that you said today. I'm not going to remember that you joked about TikTok dancing. I'm not going to always remember that, but I'm going to go, oh my God, I laughed on that podcast, or I smiled really hard, or I'm going to remember those feelings. Right? That instant feeling where like, I remember that person, but I don't really remember why I don't like that person. Right. So we remember those feelings and kind of take a note of that.
Right. You'll probably laugh at our TikTok if we do after this podcast that we'll send to you. But that's
No.
another
Please do.
episode. That you have to pay for the highlight reel to get access to that content.
Okay.
Another one you sent that I want to just put you on the spot. This quote: "Drink the coffee while it's hot." And I want to ask you that because how about if today I'm a cold brew drinker? Am I doing something wrong? So talk to me about that one.
I love that. I've actually never had that question. I say that quite a lot. So this is one of the things I say in my workshops a lot, right? So when I'm talking about taking care of yourself and I'm talking about stress awareness, I always bring it into the sense, drink the coffee while it's hot. And I mean that in the sense of we make a coffee, maybe it's ice. I don't like iced coffee, but it's a different story. And we forget about it. We put it down. My computer for Zoom is over here, but my desktop's over here. So maybe now my coffee is on this side of the computer, or maybe it's still in the kitchen because I got the phone call and I walked away, or maybe it's at the top of my car because I'm not making time to actually drink it. Drinking coffee is 1 to 5 minutes. So are you making that time just to actually sit with yourself? And in that sense too of, there's meditation, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Sit with yourself. So what does that look like? Sitting on my porch, drinking my coffee. Sometimes it's 1 minute because it's freezing out. And I just want to have a hot cup of coffee, or I'm really tired. Maybe it's a couple minutes because I'm just sitting there relaxing with myself. But it's really to highlight that it's only 1 to 5 minutes a day. And what does that look like?
Awesome. I know we've had other guests on. We had a brain performance specialist on, and she said stand outside connected to the earth, for like a couple of minutes to reset your gravity. Our body language specialist, I remember, which is like posture and everything. So we've had different guests almost do the same thing that you're saying in their own way. So
Exactly. Yeah. It just shows how important it is.
all right, it's our Fuse Networks Did You Know segment. So the Fuse tip of the day: IT management is only a part of what Fuse Networks offers. Here's 4 reasons to choose Fuse Networks. 2 words: cost savings. Security. Network security is a complicated thing. Improved performance. Out-of-date technology can be holding your business back. And the Fuse Networks team will always be available to you. Schedule your free assessment now. Visit Fuse Networks online. So our first Did You Know bit, this myth: you can live a stress-free life. So we have a stress expert here. That's what we strive to do. But talk to us about that.
So a lot of times when I do my coaching or my speaking, a lot of times people are like, oh, I want to live stress-free. That's their goal. And I always try to say in the beginning, well, I'm here to break your heart because that's not a thing. Stress-free isn't a thing. Can you lower your stress? Can you change your perception of stress? 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give you no stress at all? No, because that's just not how life is. I can't predict the future. So I can't give you every tool to deal with everything, right? We don't know what's going to happen as soon as we get off this phone call. We don't know, what's going to happen now. If emergencies happen, we don't know, right? So for me, those reactions are going to be different. So knowing that I can help you with your perception. I can help lower your stress. I can help with your responses and lowering your reaction, but I can't take it completely away.
Awesome. So what do you say to those people that like everything always bad happens to me? They look at the glass as, oh, it's half empty. Geez, like nothing just works. Like everything happens wrong. What do you say to those people? Because it seems like when you engage with those people, they try to bring you down too. They're trying to influence you in a negative way. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? Because when I deal with it, I just try to get away. But is there something we should be doing, or those people like that?
They're for sure, right? Because that's their mindset and that's their belief, right? That's how they perceive their life, in the sense of, I'm not saying look at your life in rainbows and butterflies. I'm not saying everything's gonna be great. I'm always in a great mood. I'm never stressed. It's not a thing. But when you see those persons that are always bringing you down, so in different situations, so we can talk about in the sense of my clients, right? So if I have a client that's like, well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. Okay, great. What did you find that does work? So I always talk about asking questions and getting curious with that person, right? Because it's very easy for us to become defensive and be like, well, they just don't understand me. And they're right. They're just negative Nancy. And we're just going to shut them off. Maybe always be curious. Why didn't that work? Why don't you like that tactic? Why do you not like that person on TikTok? Why do you not? I don't know why I keep saying TikTok today. Sorry. It just now it's like stuck in my brain. Right. So ask questions. Maybe it's a movie and you're like, oh my God, I really love this movie. It's my favorite movie. And they're like, that's the dumbest movie. That person's a horrible actor. Okay, negative Nancy. Why are they a horrible actor? Enlighten me. Let me learn. So I now, like, not that you're going to change my opinion. It's not what you're doing. I'm just learning.
Right. All stress is bad for you.
Right. And so this is the trick. A lot of times when I talk to people, and I bring this one up because when I talk to people like, well, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed. And a lot of times when we think about stress, it's the very high overreactor, aggressive, right? But that's not all that stress is, right? Stress is different levels. There's acute stress where, maybe I spilled the hot coffee and now I have to make another one. And that's really annoying. Or maybe my dog barked in the background while I'm on a podcast and that's really annoying. But there's also good stressors. And how are we actually looking at that? And so when I talk about stress, I talk about it as change, which means growth, right? Mm-hmm. So I grew when I started my business. I grew when I had a baby. We can all talk about how these are stressful situations, but when we change our perception, we can really talk about how there's growth within it, which shows positivity.
So there, when you coach your clients or different businesses, is there like a daily exercise that you tell clients to do to help manage this? Because I would assume some people are on different levels of when they manage stress, like the littlest things bother them, like the situation I asked you, or some people who just everything's all right and they don't show that they're stressful. Like, is there something that everyone could do to kind of, get to center kind of thing?
Yeah, of course. So that's kind of where that drink the coffee while the hot kind of comes in, is learning how to set time for yourself. So that 1 to 5 minutes, because like you just said, what's going to bother me and bother you to be completely different, but also our reactions, responses are going to be different. But this is the thing, we don't take time to recognize how we are responding and reacting. We just keep moving through the day. We keep ignoring maybe how we responded. Maybe it was aggressively. Maybe it was, like you said, I just pushed it down and I'm ignoring it. We don't really take that time. So if I would say it this way, if I took all the bills were paid, the children are taken care of, all the emails are completely sent, everything's done, and I gave you 5 minutes to do whatever you wanted, what would that be? Right. And so really taking that time to go, oh, well, I would maybe take a walk, or maybe I would open that book that I never did. So it's kind of creating that awareness around what that would be for you.
Awesome. Joe, you want to read this one, please?
Sure. On average, you have about 60,000 thoughts a day, 80% of which are negative.
So just, do the math really quick. So I like to bring this one up because a lot of times when people think about sitting by themselves, they're like, well, I don't want to sit with my thoughts. There's no way I'm going to sit there and listen to all these thoughts. But the other piece of this is you kind of talked about that negative Nancy, in the sense of, if I'm always thinking negative, if I'm always talking down to myself, if I'm always thinking I'm ugly, I'm not a good podcast host, or I'm not good at my business, I'm not a good dad, I'm whatever, I'm going to act on those. I'm going to believe them. So kind of painting that picture of, on average, there's about, it says 12 to 60,000, but I like to just highlight the 60,000 because I also like to have people raise their hand going, who thinks they have more than 60,000?
That's a lot.
Right? It's a lot of thought. So And if you think about if 80% of those are negative, that's a lot of time we're beating up on ourselves. It's a
Mhm.
lot of time, right?
Yeah, it's 48,000 over
Thank you.
12,000, right?
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's about 48,000. So think about that. That's a lot. That's a lot of negative thoughts. And so I like to point that out because that's what's dictating our life and how we're acting throughout the day. So when we take that time to talk to ourselves, to take that time to make time for ourselves, it's having going, okay, what was I thinking during that situation? If I got in an argument with my significant other, or I read that email and automatically wanted to click away and go, let me tell you,
Mhm.
what kind of conversation am I having with myself in that moment?
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something we deal with. I could just think if it's 80% that strong, it's almost like the one negative thought would yield into you go deeper in that rabbit hole. It's harder to lift yourself up. So that's why we were so intrigued for today's podcast, just to kind of get best tips. So let's transition into that. Stress less with me, Jess. So on your website, I pulled this graphic. When we learn more about ourselves, we are able to communicate, create boundaries, show up for ourselves, and create hobbies, start new healthy habits. So can you just kind of talk to our audience just kind of about those? It's already stressful being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner compared to the rest of the world who aren't. And they think really our lives are easier, but sometimes it's not. So talk to us about those. Like almost, I would say, what are 2 or 3 things our audience could just take away right now and just make their lives better with kind of how you teach to do things?
Yeah, of course. So especially with entrepreneurs, really making that time for yourself. So I saw something say from another business coach. Basically, she was saying, we leave these 9 to 5s, start our own business to then work 24/7, right? And so that's what we're doing. So going back to drinking the coffee while it's hot, when I make time for myself, I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about what do I need? What do I want? So maybe that's kind of when we go, oh, I wanted to start a business. I want to lead this passion. I want to start this podcast, right? When I start to make time for myself, I start to learn what's important to me. So maybe I'm not watching all the Netflix series this weekend. Maybe I'm actually reading the book that's going to help me get into that podcast. Maybe I'm, going onto your website and saying, oh, I want to be that free website person this month, right? So what are those things that I'm doing? So when I'm creating that communication, it's that communication with myself. Remember going back to that 60,000 thoughts a day. I'm communicating with myself. This is what I need. I want, I deserve, I'm allowed to have. I can do. I know I'm able to do that. But then it's also having that communication with others. What do I need so I can succeed in that? Okay, well, Mondays I'm recording podcasts. So I need someone to watch the dogs, babysit the kids. I maybe need somebody I'm not making dinner that night. So I know I need those because I've set that time for myself, but I'm also going to communicate that with somebody else. Maybe it's the significant other that I'm living with. Maybe it's my kids, right? So how am I creating that communication with them? But it's also setting those boundaries. So it's learning to set those boundaries of this is my time. So my time to regroup, but it's also my time to work on the business. And what does that look like?
You just also brought up time management as well.
Yes.
So how people can manage their time to reduce the stress.
Exactly. And we know this, right? This isn't a new whatever of, oh my God, I didn't know I waste time on social media. Oh, I didn't know I just scroll down through Wonderland or get stuck in a series of TV or whatever the case may be. We know we do this, right? That's not a new thing. But when I start to learn, when I start to set those boundaries, I can still have that. I'm not taking that stuff away, right? I'm like a dietitian would. They're not going to take the whole chocolate and caffeine away. They're going to find ways that you're finding that balance and those boundaries in it. Because when you have that time management, I'm going to go, okay, what's important to me today? Because today's Wednesday when we're recording, right? So Wednesday, my schedule based on today, what's important? How do I communicate that? How am I setting boundaries with that? And then we talked about the hobbies, and the last part was, is that making time for myself? What's that one thing that makes me happy?
Yeah.
What do you say to the entrepreneur out there that their small business is their life? And when you say, because I've talked to entrepreneurs and what's your hobby? Oh, it's my business still. And right. And just talking to you, that could be like unhealthy. How do they know? How do you detach them from that, that almost that stuck thought of your business is on 24 hours a day, but what you think is a hobby, you're doing whatever, you need to fully detach. Talk to us about that to that person.
So what happens when we have a hobby? There's a couple of things that happen, right? So especially with a business owner, we become more creative, right? We become more of like, you ever go for that walk or even a shower? Let's just start with showers. How many times have you been in a shower like, oh my God, this is the greatest idea. I'm going to implement this. This is what I need to do. Well, what happens when I don't give myself that time? Or the other piece to it, how many times have we been doing something, a funnel, we'll say TikTok, a podcast, or whatever the case may be, and it doesn't fulfill our business or even ourselves. So when I make time for that hobby, when I make time for myself, I'm able to recognize what's important to me. I'm able to become creative, and I'm able to kind of see the bigger picture of what I actually need in my life. So, and finding that balance, because a lot of times too, when we start a business, we do it for more freedom. We do it for more control in our life. We do it so I can spend more time with my family. But when we start the business, we're so wrapped up in the business and wanting to succeed that we don't do that, right? So what are you working for? You're not working to work. You're working to be you. You're working to be with your family,
And I think some business owners get lost in that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're thinking like you don't want to take a day off because you feel like you're losing out to the competition, like there's parts of it that, okay, it's good. You appreciate the hustle, but then the health part of it is, we've had guests on our podcast, just, you got to take time for yourself. It's important to take care of you too, not just your business and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's so important because it starts from the top. If I'm taking care of myself, my business is being taken care of, right? So that's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, you just made me think of like, I tend to work a lot, like most entrepreneurs do, but like my family will be like, you're always working, you're always on your phone, you're always answering emails. And it's, I guess for me, it's that working on the time management piece of maybe I should put my phone down after this time.
And I think with the time management piece that you're saying too, is the way I try to picture it when I'm going to companies or whether I'm working with a business owner is if you have 40 hours, we'll just do the basic 40 hours a week, right? Or the 8 hours a day. Why are you not getting it done in that 8 hours? So when I make time for myself, I can kind of go, okay, well, maybe I need help in this area. So then I hire an employee. Or again, like for me, I had to take some things out of my business. I'm like, well, this isn't even bringing me revenue. It's not bringing me happiness. So maybe this is for later, right? So really having those kind of talks with yourself, that kind of comes in that time management piece.
So when like businesses or people find you, what does that look like? If someone like, okay, I listen to the podcast, I like what you say, but we always have people like, I'm scared to call the guest or reach out. What does that look like? So what does a program look like working with you and everything?
Yeah, of course. So there's the two programs. One is the individual coaching. So with that, I always offer the free consultation. Let's just jump on a call. Let me explain to you what it is, because it is a little different. It is a little scary, right? I'm not a therapist. I have a therapy degree. I have that therapy background. And then I have the master's of public health. So it's like, oh, what is that? Right. So let's just get on a conversation. Let's see if I even resonate with you. Maybe it's not me, but I have somebody else. Right. So let's just kind of get that conversation going. And then with the corporation, with working with me, it's very similar in the sense of, let's jump on a phone call. What are some stressors? What are things that you want to get out of the business? And then with that, it's a 6-month series program where I come into you once a month, 45 minutes. And we talk about breaking these habits down and bringing them to the work-life balance scene.
Is there certain size companies or is there a company that's too large in size?
So the average company I work with now, it's about 60 to 80. I've worked with way bigger and I've also worked with way smaller. So average is about 60 to 80, but I've done both sides, all sizes. Yeah.
So working with those different types of companies, have you seen one or two things in common that businesses do wrong a lot as it relates to stress management?
I think we're all going to be very surprised on this answer. Communication. Communication, right? It's very big on communication, and I think it can go a couple ways, whether it's a power struggle or it's scared. We don't want to tell them too much. It's a little bit of everything there, but communication is so huge. And again, with that perception and what we're talking about earlier, let's figure out why we're butting heads. Let's figure out what the chain of command is. It's a lot around communication.
So has that changed more now in COVID, where communication isn't as direct and it's indirect, messaging apps via email? Have you seen that change within businesses?
I think because of that, because people are now talking through so many different channels. And I think messaging is getting lost of, oh, well, I told you over here on this app about that. And so you should have followed up over here and said, well, Are we communicating through email? Are we communicating through this app? Are we, where are we communicating? So again, going back to that communication piece in the sense of where's going to be the main source where I'm going to go and say, okay, these are the things I have to check off, right? So, and what works for your company?
Right. Yeah, I think companies just deal with things different ways. You know, we've read, well, the climate now with layoffs and everything. We're out of Seattle, so a lot of these tech companies are laying off not like 50, but like thousands. And here's an email, get your stuff out. It's, there's no like personal connection. Talk about stress. Like you open your email, like, oh, is this today's the day? Like that wouldn't be healthy.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And it's scary. It's unknown.
So what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I know when we publish this stuff online on our social channels, we'll put all your links and everything, but what's the best way for people to reach you?
Yeah, of course. So on my website, you can go to my website, journeytoyourself.net, has my contacts on there. But also I always like to recommend my podcast, Stress Less with me, Jess, as well.
Awesome. Before we go, one last plug for our hashtag Valor Cares initiative, Joe.
Sure. So if you don't have a website or you would love your website to be built, just go and submit your information.
Yeah, pretty stress-free process.
Pretty stress-free process.
Pardon the pun. So, any last things, Joe?
No, it was a pleasure having you on. You made me think of like just my time throughout the day and how I need to set my own boundaries and then maybe set time for myself.
Yeah.
That's important. Definitely.
Well, we appreciate you having you on, and we'll push people your way should they need to be connected with you. But on behalf of our sponsors, A Advanced Septic Service and Fuse Networks, my name's Galen.
I'm Joe.
Coming at you virtually from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Jessica, thanks for joining us today for this podcast episode, and thanks everyone for watching and tuning in. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A good networker is like a great interviewer.
I'm huge on authenticity, guys. It's a big part of my message.
Claim your local listings and don't get caught paying someone for your local listing.
If you want to be successful, you got to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times.
And when in doubt, give to other people and don't expect anything in return. But in giving to other people and helping them, it almost always comes back.
It's using the power of partnership, creating trusted partner networks to work with you to make your company be an offer more than just you.
They've done 90% of the work. It's your job to do the last 10% to meet them in the middle.
Don't let the fear of losing be greater than the excitement of winning.